Hi everyone, my name's Ebony. Welcome back to my channel.
Think I know you better to forget her. Certain people made for running. Think I need you more than let you know I'm bored and tell me this means more than nothing.
Today we're doing my March wrap up and we are doing it as quickly as possible. We're doing a speed round because I have a class in 45 minutes, and I have 16 books to talk about here. I read so much in March, and honestly, I've been steaming through April too. I think I've already read like 11 books in April and it's only halfway through. So the first book I read in March was Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. I read this for my paperback book club that I co-host. Unfortunately, we've been having a lot of scheduling issues, so we haven't hosted the live show for this book, and I believe it was actually the February book. Both Anne and I have gotten jobs. I'm not sure how it's gonna go in the future, so like I don't know. But Tweet Cute I thought was a super cute romance book. If you don't know, it follows two characters named Pepper and Jack, whose families own rival restaurants. Pepper's family owns like a big corporation restaurant, kind of like Burger King, and Jack's family owns like a local restaurant. One day Jack's family accuses Pepper's family of stealing their secret recipe for their like grilled cheese, and so they have like this Twitter battle going on. Jack and Pepper are the people in the Twitter battle, but they don't know that Jack and Pepper are the people they're tweeting to because they also go to school together. It's kind of confusing. I really loved all of the social media in it. It's very interesting to see social media play out in books. The cooking made me very hungry. The whole time I just wanted a grilled cheese really bad. It was very slow burn, almost too much for my taste for a romance. So like it felt like it took forever for them to actually get to a point where they were like together. The romance took a long time to happen, and then by the time it did happen, the ending happened like right after that, so it just wrapped up really quickly. I believe I ended up giving that 3 stars. I don't know, I didn't write it down on my sheet. Hold on, I will check. I gave it 4 stars. I liked it better than I thought I did. Okay, so next I read Travesty Generator by Lily and Yvonne Bertram. So this is a poetry book that's written in the style of computer coding. Here, let me see if I can find one. And there's like permutations. Oh gosh, you can't even see that. I don't know, it was a really interesting way to write poetry. There's like that. So I ended up reading this for a class. If you remember, in February, I believe, I read a poetry book called The New Nudity. I read it for the same class as that. I liked the uniqueness of the like code, but it also made it very difficult for me to read because I don't understand code. And my boyfriend, who's in computer science, also didn't understand it because it's written in Python, I believe, and he doesn't use Python. He uses other things. I think C# is one of the ones he uses. But it definitely made some good points on racism. It's definitely an own voices sort of story. The author, who identifies as they them, so I will be saying they them, they talked about like Emmett Till and like different like historical points with racism, which I thought was really interesting and a really unique way to bring that up, especially in poetry. But overall, I give this book no rating because I don't like to rate poetry books. I just think it's unfair because I feel like poetry is so subjective. So I did enjoy it, but I didn't give it a rating. So and then I read Nick and Norah's Infinite Playlist by Rachel Cohn and David Levithan. It was a very quick read, a lot shorter than I was expecting it to be. The audiobook was only like 5 hours or something, but because of that, everything happened so fast, and honestly I was lost through most of it because I felt like the book just like jumped around and I was like, how did we get here? It didn't really catch my attention either, so I found myself getting distracted while I was listening to the audiobook. But the ending was definitely very sweet, and I have heard that there is a movie about this and it stars Kat Dennings, and I love Kat Dennings, so I will definitely be watching that movie. But I gave it 3 stars. Then I read Dumplin by Julie Murphy. If you don't know, this book is about a character named Dumplin who is very confident in her body. She's on the heavier side. She's a very curvy lady, but she's always been very confident in her body. But then one day this new guy starts working at the restaurant that she works at, and he like throws her off her game. She's like losing her confidence, and so she does what she knows she can do to build her confidence back up, and that is enter a beauty pageant. And her mom is actually one of the sponsors of the beauty pageant. I don't know, she like helps out the girls, and her mom was very upset with this, and there was a lot of conflict there. The pageant aspect kind of reminded me of the TV show Unsatiable, which has Debbie Ryan in it. I don't like that show. I think that show is very problematic because it's very much has a lot of fat phobia, and there's a lot of just like weird like infidelity and like creepy things that just happen in that show. That show's wild. It reminds me of that show, but like in a good way. Like Dumplin wasn't trashy or toxic at all the way that Unsatiable is. There was a friend breakup aspect throughout this book as well, which I really liked. I thought that's a very important thing to write about and to read about, so I really enjoyed that the author decided to explore that. Somehow though, this book turned into like a weird love triangle, and I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. I'm not a fan of love triangles, so I just was like not impressed with that part of it. But I did end up liking how the tension between Dumplin and her mom was resolved at the end of the book, and I definitely think this book promotes body positivity and tries to dismantle the current beauty standards, which I really appreciated, and I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read The Evolution of Mara Dyer by Michelle Hodkin. I do have the book, but it's at home, so I will pop up a picture. This is the second book in the Mara Dyer series, and if you don't know, I reread the first book in the Mara Dyer series in December for my December Fantasy Challenge, and I reread it because I had already read it, but I like forgot everything, so I reread it because I wanted to continue the series. So this was me continuing it. The first book in the Mara Dyer series follows a character named Mara whose boyfriend and 2 other friends and her all are in an asylum when it collapses, and Mara is the only person who survives, but she doesn't remember what happened. And so like she ends up moving to a new school, and she meets a new boy whose name is Noah, and I absolutely adore Noah. He is amazing. She also has this sort of power that she can like kill things like with her mind. And there's a lot of like exploration of that in this series. But anyway, in the second book, there were some chapters sprinkled in about Mara's grandmother, which I didn't really care for because they were like super boring. And so I kind of just like skimmed those chapters. I wasn't a huge fan of that. This book had yet another instance of parents not believing their children when their children say certain things, and I really hate that trope. I wish people would stop writing about it and putting it in movies and TV shows. So like I was just really annoyed because her parents were just constantly like, they thought that she was crazy. Like, she wasn't. It just bothered me. It was also another instance of YA portraying bad therapists and that therapy is bad, and I think that that's also a very toxic thing. But also, to be fair, this series was written in like early 2000s, and so like it does have some of those toxic YA traits that were just very popular back in that time. So like I took it with a grain of salt. Also, the therapy side of this book was really boring and annoying when she would go to therapy. Like, it wasn't good therapy, so it wasn't very interesting. I would rather have spent more time with Mara and Noah figuring out like the powers and like what's going on with them, rather than just sitting through Mara sitting in therapy. Like, I mean, it's okay if you're gonna have the character do that, but I would rather like have had more scenes with Noah than have a lot of scenes in therapy, if that makes sense. I was also just very frustrated that Mara wasn't speaking up about what happened. There were so many people she could have confided in that would have believed her. I think her brother Daniel would have definitely believed her with what happened in the last book, and like she just wouldn't talk about it with anybody except for Noah, and that really bothered me. Also, I do remember when I was reading the ending, the last 50 pages were intense. And I was so lost through it. Like, I literally wrote in my notes. Like, I remember writing it as I was reading, and I wrote, seriously, what is going on? I'm so lost. I don't understand. And then this book series definitely had that similar, like, 2010s YA trope of there being a big reveal where everything is so much bigger than just the characters. Other examples is, like, Divergent and The Maze Runner. I did end up liking this book better than the first one for the most part. It just built on what the first book had set up very well, and I gave it 4 stars. I actually wrote probably more like 4.5 stars, but I'm not doing 0.5s this year. Then I read This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. I apologize if I butchered those names. So my first impression with this book is that it has beautiful writing, and it was very short, which I always appreciate a short book. I really liked the letter correspondence between the 2 characters. If you didn't know, this story is about these 2 characters who are on different sides of a time war, and they're like time traveling. I'm honestly not sure. Like, I read this book and I'm like, wait, what just happened? I also liked that the characters didn't actually have names, so it was really interesting. Like, it like protected their identity since they were on opposite sides of the time war, and I thought that was a good touch. And I liked that this book was able to write, like, it was written in a way where you didn't feel like you had to choose sides of the Time War. It was more about the interaction between the two characters than it was about the Time War itself. And while I did like the relationship between the two characters, I was kind of bored throughout most of the book. It did have very beautiful writing, but it was writing that didn't capture my attention. I also wish I had known more about the characters, like their personalities. And maybe, like, it did bring it up and I just missed it because I just wasn't, like, super intrigued or anything. But I also feel like I missed a lot because I read it on audiobooks, so I would definitely try it again physically because I feel like it was probably a beautiful story that I just didn't appreciate enough because of the format I read it in. So, like, if I ever got the chance, I would probably try it again. It's 6 o'clock, and if you can hear bells, that's because there's a bell tower on campus and it rings like every 15 minutes, so I apologize, but I can't stop because we have to get going because I have class in 30 minutes. Next, I read A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, and this book reminded me a lot of Ninth House. I really enjoy dark academia, which is the reason why I picked it up, even though it's fantasy and I don't usually like fantasy. However, it was kind of info-dumpy, which I hate info-dumps. I hate world building. Like, I just hate all of that, so it was kind of annoying. I don't know if it was just the audiobook that I was listening to, but the characters were kind of annoying. Like, all of them. Like, the main character and, like, just every other supporting character I just, like, was really annoyed by. I'm not sure if I'm gonna continue the series. Pretty sure it's gonna be a series. And I'm not sure if I would continue it. Like, I didn't really love this book or anything, but I did enjoy, like, the dark academia vibes. So, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Probably not, but maybe. Like, I'm not gonna officially say no. I gave this one 3 stars. Did I say what I gave the Time War? I don't know if I did. I gave it 3 stars if I didn't say that. And then I read The Heir by Kiera Cass. If you don't know, this is the sort of companion series, duology, to The Selection, which The Selection, I've talked about so much lately because I've been reading them, is about a sort of dystopic United States where they are now ruled by a monarchy, and when the prince decides he's ready to marry, he hosts this bachelor-esque thing called The Selection, where 35 girls from around the country are, like, entered in the selection, and then he picks which one he's going to marry. So this book, The Heir, and then The Crown is the next one. I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to. I'm very excited to read it. Follow the daughter of the 2 characters in the first book, and so they're also having a selection for her, but it's like the first ever selection where it's the princess choosing a husband. Usually it's the prince choosing a bride. I really thought that that was a really interesting way to go about this. However, America, Maxon, and Aspen, which are like the main 3 characters in the first book, literally, it doesn't even feel like that they're the same characters in this book. Like, I was just, like, they kept saying and doing things that I don't think that these characters would have done, like, based on how much time I spent with them for the last 3 books, so I was kind of disappointed in that. It's interesting to see them as, like, the parents of Edelyn, which is the main character, but, like, it just doesn't feel like they are the same people. Also, sorry if you can hear my roommates, they're talking. But that said, I do think that this book was just as enjoyable as the original trilogy. I haven't read The Crown yet, so I don't know, like, as a duology, I don't know, but I really enjoyed this book just as much as the trilogy, and a lot of people, like, hate these 2 books, so, like, unpopular opinion. I think most people have an issue with the main character and they just think she's really annoying, and, like, I'll agree she's kind of annoying, but, like, not so much that it made me dislike the book. There was a character in here named Henry who actually doesn't speak the same language as America, so there's a translator for him, and I really loved the relationship. Did I say America? I meant Edelyn, not America. That's the character in the first book. Anyway, I really liked the relationship between them, even though they don't speak the same language. It honestly was, like, a really cute way to go about that. I will say, as a reader, it was a lot more difficult and annoying to be on this side of the selection, because in the selection, the original trilogy, like, America is one of the selectees, so you only really need to know her, Maxon, who was, like, the person who was searching for people, and then, like, a couple of the other selection people who, like, America gets to know. But in this book, Edelyn is the person doing the selection, and so you literally, along with her, have to, like, figure out all of these 35 different guys. And of course, like, some of them get eliminated right away, which is helpful, but, like, it's still a lot of names and characters that, like, you only see once or twice for the first book, and I'm just like, I don't remember all of these people. So that was just really hard as a reader to like get around. But also, that being said, I like that we're on this side of the selection, because in the first book, like, you almost know that she's gonna win. Like, that's just how books work, you know? But in this book, you don't know who she's going to pick. It adds a little bit more like tension and mystery. It is such a different atmosphere having a girl be the person who's running the selection rather than it is having a guy, especially because Edalyn gets put into positions where boys are trying to take advantage of her. Like, that would be less likely to happen if she were a boy. Like, that would never have happened to Maxon. And there was a moment when she was like quizzing the boys, like right after something had happened, and she said, when is it okay for you to put your hands on me without my permission? And someone answered, never. And she's like, correct. You would do well to remember that and not make the same mistake as whoever it was who tried to take advantage of her. And it was such like a bad bitch moment, and I was here for it. Like, I was listening to it in the car, and I'm like, yes, girl, you go. Put them in their place. It was great. So, like, I think that I like being on the side of the selection a bit more, because it adds a different, like, level, a different, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but basically, I think that this version allows for more feminism than the original trilogy did, which I really appreciate. And I gave this one 4 stars. So then I read Bridge of Souls, my most anticipated book of the year. It's by Victoria Schwab. So if you don't know, Bridge of Souls is the 3rd book in the Cassidy Blake series, which the first book is called City of Ghosts, if you've heard of it. Basically, this series follows Cassidy, who can see ghosts, and her best friend is actually a ghost. And her parents write ghost hunting novels, and at the beginning of the first book, their novels get picked up to do a TV show, so now her parents are like traveling around the world to these different haunted places and doing like TV show exposés or whatever of the different haunted places, talking about the history and like all the ghosts that are supposedly there, but they don't know that Cassidy can see ghosts, so they don't know that all these different places they're going are a big headache for Cassidy because she keeps running into all these different ghosts. And so this is the 3rd book, and I absolutely love this series. Like, it's a middle grade series, and like the first book got me out of a reading slump. I just so enjoy being with Cassidy, and like they're just so quick and so fun, and I love them. This book was set in New Orleans, and so there's always a lot of culture in these books, because some of them are set in other countries. So you always get like that culture side of whatever country they're in. But I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and I would have given it 5, but the book felt a little less suspenseful compared to the first 2 books, so that was a little unfortunate. Most likely it's more like a 4.5, but like I said, I'm not giving 0.5s, so I had to give it a 4. Like, I gave the first 2 books 5 stars, so I was just a little sad that this one, it didn't quite hold up compared to the first 2 books, but it was still very enjoyable. And honestly, I would probably read it again. Like, I would reread this whole series, like, just binge it, because I read it on audiobook. Like, the second I got the audiobook for it, I just immediately picked it up. And I feel like I may have missed a couple things because I tend to go through audiobooks really fast and I don't have time to, like, digest everything. So, I would definitely read it again. Okay, we have less than 20 minutes, so we need to hurry. So next I read Blood Promise by Rochelle Mead. This is the 4th book in the Vampire Academy series, and if you don't know, I don't know how you wouldn't, I co-host the Vampire Academy and Bloodlines Read Along. If you want to join us, there's always information down below. Our next live show is going to be for Spiritbound, and it's going to be this Saturday actually, so stay tuned. It is on Nana's channel, and like I said, information down below. Go check it out. It's very fun. Highly recommend. We have a great time. This is my favorite book of the Vampire Academy series. I have read this series I think 3, possibly 4 times before, and this one's always my favorite. I don't want to like give too much away because there's like a lot of things that happen in the first 3 books, so if you haven't read this book, like, I don't want to spoil it, but like I said, just go check out the live show because we do full depth spoilers. Like, if you just want to hear all of our thoughts, just go watch the live shows because we go very into depth. But I read this book with my boyfriend, and we were actually running out of time before the live show. Like, we woke up the day of the live show, and it happens at 6 p.m. my time. So we woke up at like 11 or whatever, and we were only on page 300, and it's a 500-page book. So we had to read 200 pages, like, in that, like, that day. And so we were like, like I was reading it out loud, and I was reading it as fast as I could because I knew that we weren't gonna have that much time. We did end up finishing it like right before the live show started, so thankfully we were able to get through it. Also, we're very behind on this month's book, so we need to catch up because, like I said, the live show is on Saturday, and I don't even think we're on page 100 yet, so we really need to kick it in gear. So I gave this book 5 stars. I give all the Vampire Academy books 5 stars. I love the Vampire Academy books. I have so much nostalgia tied to them. So, like, that one was an easy 5 stars for me. And then I read The Retribution of Mara Dyer, which is the last book in the Mara Dyer trilogy. There are Noah Shaw books. I believe there's 2. It's like a spin-off duology, but I haven't read those. But I did finish the trilogy. So I already gave you a bit of, like, the synopsis of it, but for this one specifically, it randomly started having chapters from Noah's point of view, like, halfway through the book, and none of the other books had anything from Noah's point of view. So it was just really, like, odd, and I feel like it wasn't very consistent. And for some reason, Noah's chapters were written in present tense, whereas the rest of the book is written in past tense, and that really bothered me. And then also, the climax was kind of cliche. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but the ending, like the falling action resolution, I really enjoyed. And the format of the ending was kind of weird, and if you've read this book, you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to, like, say too much about it because spoilers, but, like, it was weird. Like, there was just a random change in formatting that I was like, why? Like, be consistent, you know? But anyway, I ended up giving it 4 stars, and I do hope to read the Noah Shaw duology soon. And then I read One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus. I read One of Us Is Lying last summer. I did, like, a whole spoiler reading vlog of that book, if you want to check it out. Because I buddy read it with a friend, and I don't know, I just thought it'd be fun to vlog it. So this one is the sequel to One of Us Is Lying. I actually thought that it was more like a companion novel, like different characters completely, but actually it's like the siblings of the characters in the first book. So, I mean, it was kind of nice to, like, go back and revisit the characters from the first book, even if it wasn't from their point of view, but we still got to, like, interact with them. So that was kind of cool. One of the people who narrated the audiobook is the narrator for all of the Michael Vey audiobooks, and I love the Michael Vey books. I reread them probably every year. I reread them not that long, like last fall. And so I think, like, just his voice gives me so much serotonin because I just associate him with Michael Vey. And so I think it, like, boosted my liking of this book more than it should have. But also, the ending of this book was kind of underwhelming. I feel like, as much as I didn't like the ending of the first book, at least it had tension. And this book didn't feel like it had tension at all. So I gave it 3 stars. Then I read Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. This is the prequel to The Hate U Give. It follows the main character's father, Maverick, and I actually enjoyed this one more than The Hate U Give. The Hate U Give was a really good book, and Angie Thomas is a stunning author. I think I like Maverick. Like, I like Maverick's character, so I think that that's why. So at the beginning of the book, he finds out that he is a father, and so he's kind of just trying to figure out how to be a father. He's only a teenager. He's still in high school. So he's just trying to do whatever he can to take care of his kid. I really appreciated the dedication he had to his child, even though he was totally unprepared. And he had to sacrifice his schoolwork and things he'd rather do more to take care of his kid. Also, Maverick is part of this, like, drug running gang thing. I don't know. I didn't really understand that part. But that's the only way he knows to provide for his children. And so it's very difficult for him to figure out, like, how to provide for his children without being part of, like, a drug thing, which is bad. And there were definitely a lot of really important topics discussed in this book. I won't really go into that because spoilers, but I really appreciated the way this book was done, the family aspect. Angie Thomas is great at writing family. So I really loved Maverick's character, like I said, so it was just very, very enjoyable for me, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read UnWholly by Neil Shusterman. This is the second book in the Unwind series. I read Unwind for that December fantasy challenge thing, like I talked about earlier, which you can check out. Unwind is set in this dystopian society where, like, when you turn 13, your parents can have you unwound, which is, they call it, like, a retroactive abortion. Essentially, like, it's just a way to donate literally all of your body, but you're not dead. So you still have consciousness, but you are no longer a person. It's really interesting. Neil Shusterman always has very unique story ideas. I just really enjoyed this whole series. In this book, they introduce a character named Cam, who was created completely out of unwind parts. And that was just, like, so interesting, and, like, the way that was done was, like, wow. Like, Neil Shusterman always has these really unique, complex ideas, and he always pushes them to, like, their fullest potential. He gets the most he can out of this world that he's created, and I always really appreciate that. We got the perspective of the old characters from the original book, but we also got some new characters as well, which, like, there were a lot of perspectives and a lot of characters, but I didn't find myself getting lost at all, and I even listened to these on audiobook for the most part. I started reading UnWholly physically, but then I switched over to the audiobook, and, like, I wasn't really lost at all. So, like, that said something about how well it was written. This series is literally just, it's phenomenal. It's wild. Like, I don't know. It's definitely an intriguing one. I gave this book 4 stars. Okay, 2 more. Then I read Dash and Lily's Book of Dares by Rachel Cohn and David Levithan, which is funny that I read 2 books by, like, those authors, like, in the same month. I don't know. And, so this was a cute romance that's set during Christmas, which I don't like Christmas. I don't usually like Christmas books, but, like, I wanted to read this and I want to watch the show. Is it a show or movie? Whatever. And so it starts with Dash, who finds this notebook that was left by Lily in a bookstore, and it gives him these list of, like, dares to, like, find out who left this notebook. And so Dash and Lily have, like, a correspondence with this notebook, which it sets up an adorable meet cute, which I really enjoyed. I really liked the, like, dares aspect in this book. Like, they dared each other to do different things, and I really liked it. But, like, at the same time, I wasn't super interested in the romance, or, like, there were other, like, subplots that I didn't really care about either. So, like, it was enjoyable, but not, like, super amazing, so I gave it 3 stars. And the last book I read in March was UnSouled by Neil Shusterman. This is the 3rd book in the Unwind series, and I already talked about UnWholly, so, like, I don't really have much more to add, because, like, this series is just amazing, and I love it. So I guess I have said everything I want to say about that series thus far. I did read Undivided, the last book, but I read it in April. So, like, wait around for my April wrap-up, and then you'll hear my thoughts on it. But that is it for all the books I read in March. I read so many books. I didn't show you my bullet journal. Okay, usually I put this at the beginning, but I forgot to do it because I was like, oh my gosh, we have to get through this video so fast. I have 8 minutes until my class. So I'm going to show you this really quick. So, bullet journal, yay. We love that. For March, this is my page tracker. The lower the dots are, the more I read. So on these dots, I read 100+ pages. If the dots are up here, that means I didn't read it all that day. So, I mean, I had a decent reading month. Like, physically reading, these are just physical books. I don't track my audiobooks this way because I read plenty of audiobooks. I need to motivate myself to read more physical books. So, like, this is just for physical books. So it's, like, pretty decent, but not the best. I could have done better. And then here is my March wrap-up page. All the books I read in March. There's so many because, for reference, this was February's. As you can see, there were a lot more. And then, stats. I'm sorry, my brain is so frazzled and my throat hurts. So in March, I read 16 books, and for reference, I read 11 in February and 10 in January. I read 5,517 pages. For reference, I read 3,393 in February and 3,391 in January. I read 4 physical books, and I read 3 physical books, both in February and January. I read 12 audiobooks, and for reference, I read 8 in February and 7 in January, and I had 1 reread, and I had 0 rereads in the previous months. So, those are all my book stats. My throat hurts. I need to close out this. But thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my speedy wrap-up. I really need to get to class. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure you subscribe down below so you don't miss my future wrap-ups. My April wrap-up. Eventually, it's going to be wild because it's going to probably be longer than this, I would think. And if you want to follow me on social media, all the links are in the description box down below as always. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!
All you see is black.